Hello, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
We wanted to talk about how to manage holidays and manage being with families and manage all the things that happens during the holidays when we're with family. Like Ramda said, that if you think you're in Leiden, go spend a weekend with your family. And that is what is happening during the holidays, that we know beforehand all the things that is going to happen. We know what, you know,
Uncle Bob is gonna say.
yeah, and Auntie Kurt is going to reply. And we would like to really point into that. But before we do, first of all, I would like to say a huge thank you for everybody who has subscribed to this channel. When I started the Awakening curriculum in January this year, can you believe it? It's only been a year. I had no idea that it would become this big during 1 year. There's 3,000 subscribers to the channel, and I have 100 members that are working specifically with everything that we work with in the curriculum. In the members area, obviously the ones that are members, but for everyone else in the members area, I'm interacting directly with the people, and they also get more goodies that I keep in the small group, because a lot of time when you post something on YouTube, you don't know who sees it and who might hear something that is not the case. And I would like to catch everybody that when I'm saying something, making a post or anything in the members area, the reaction will stay in there and we can interact with it. And I'm so grateful for the 100 members that has joined me this year. It's been an amazing ride, absolutely amazing. And for everybody who are subscribing and watching the curriculum, thank you so much. It's really lovely to make material that is reaching that far. And on that note, I would like to publicly say thank you to Angelo. I started the channel in January, and in February I had an interview with Angelo, and in March on my channel, and then in March we did an interview on his channel. And there's so many of you guys that comes from Angelo that has joined on the channel and are doing the curriculum and going to Vince's meetings and going to our inquiry meetings and coming to the Q&A. And I just want to say thank you so much to Angelo for making all this possible. Obviously, it's not only him. I mean, you guys were the ones subscribing. So, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm so grateful. And I'm really looking forward to 24. In 23, we work with the lower 5 fetters. And in 24, we're going into the higher 5. The lower 5 is about all the identification that we do with mind, with feeling and emotions, the diversions we have with blaming, shaming, complaining, and explaining, all the things that we don't want about people, and all the things that we do want in life. So it's very crude, and the way that the curriculum is made is very first fetter, first lesson, second lesson, and so forth. In the new year, the way that we're working with the higher 5s is going to be more fluid. We want really to emphasize that it's not a linear process when it comes to the higher 5s. So it's going to be it's going to have a different setup, but you'll see when we get to that. And then I also want to say that as you have found out by now, that you have the curriculum on the Awakening Curriculum YouTube page, and then you have all the inquiries on Touch page. Which is with what was that?
I have no idea.
Are you high-fiving him?
Like pointed at me like, yeah.
Him, not the other Todd sitting further down, but this Todd here. I'm so happy you clarified which Todd it was who was talking about.
We don't know who's watching.
I know. Now we have clarified which Todd we're talking about. That Todd, on Unfettered Mindfulness, on his channel. we have all the inquiries, and a lot of the things that we're working with in the curriculum, you can go deeper with the inquiries that you have on your channel.
Yeah, and I think next year, excuse me, I think next year it's going to be even more of that, where it's just going to be, because when I started the channel, it was more, originally when I first started doing it, it was really just to start teaching people meditation and then to start getting an inroad into inquiry. And then as we've been working together more and more with it, that it started to become more sort of that adjunct to to the Awakening Curriculum YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And so now it's, the line blurs where we're going to be working a lot with. In fact, you have some videos that are coming out where my inquiry part is going to be in the video on the Awakening Curriculum, but then it's also going to be standalone on mine for people who just want to go and redo the inquiry over and over again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's also on the channel on Fetter Mindfulness. It's also where you find the videos of the Tuesday inquiry.
Yes.
That we have, all the inquiries that we're doing there. So what we wanted to talk about in this video here, now we got all the thank yous out of the way, is about you're about to engage in Christmas with the family, and that's always an issue. Families are great as mirrors for us to see what is actually going on. And what you probably will experience is that you go to holiday, somebody's saying something, and immediately you get that contraction in the body. You should take on an extra coat. Why don't you have an extra glass of eggnog? Why do you have an extra glass of eggnog? And you feel that contraction in the body, and immediately the blaming, shaming, complaining, explaining comes up on that level.
Yeah.
And what we would like for you to be curious about is when that pointing happens, that is a deflection from what is happening in your body. There's a contraction happening in your body that you're trying to avoid being connected to. And that is what we would like to talk about now. That that contraction that is happening in the body is always connected. We feel as if it's connected with a thought.
Yeah.
So the contraction is happening, and we know that is annoyance because Auntie Kurt said what she just did. She always, say that. So that contraction we think is connected with what Auntie Kurt is saying.
And you might even get that contraction just with the thought of, oh my God, she's going to be there. And then you haven't even been in the situation yet, but you already have this anticipation that you're going to be in a confrontation with her because she's always like that.
Yeah.
And then automatically that contraction will happen even before time. So if you're in a situation like that, it's perfect. Even before you get there, you have a chance to work with this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so did you want to go on with that? Or?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, first of all, I'm thinking that, of course, it's not Auntie Kurt, it's Uncle Janice. So we're just rephrasing that, it's Uncle Janice. So Uncle Janice is there and saying something. Would you like to do an inquiry for that?
Yeah, sure. So, one thing, sometimes it's directed at you in a way that, like you said, like, why are you drinking another thing of eggnog? Don't you think you've had enough? Or, something about, something passive aggressive about the job that you have or something. But often, a lot of times, especially in this political climate in the US, we have a lot of like political stuff that tends to come up and a lot of social issues that come up. And that can be really, it can be disguised in a way where it doesn't feel like it's about us. It feels like we have this righteous feeling of anger or indignation for somebody else. That, well, no, it's my position now to defend those people who can't speak for themselves in this situation. And I have to set that person right.
Yeah, right now, politically, we have the Palestine-Israeli-Hamas issue happening where exactly that is happening. Yeah.
But the point of it is not that you're in this situation where you are really going to change that person's mind. You are really going to set them straight and, you know, create another social warrior for whatever position you're behind. It's recognizing in you what feels discomfort in that moment with this situation. So if you have this issue where somebody says something, whether it's directed directly to you or it's about an issue that you are very passionate about, feel what comes up. And the initial thing that happens is there is a sensation that rises in the body, and usually it's one that we would classify as being uncomfortable. There's a sensation of tension, of this heat, of this flushing, of this shaking even, you know, the adrenaline hits and you start to actually like gotta say something.
Feeling of suffocating.
It's a feeling of
sometimes.
suffocating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's fear that is the underlying starting point of it, you have that feeling of suffocation, that you can't breathe, something sitting here on your chest and it goes at the throat.
Yeah. But what we want you to notice is the feedback loop that starts happening in this situation. So you have the sensation, and rather than just immediately drop down out of the story of whatever the issue is, whether it's supposedly about you or the Palestinians or eggnog or whatever it is, right back into the body. Feel what's there. And then notice if you have these thoughts that are coming up. And these next thoughts might be, oh, but they can't say that because blah, 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 and then all of these reasons. But notice each one of those thoughts itself triggers another cascade of sensation. There's something else happening where there's a belief that this sensation is directly tied to whatever the person is saying. Like, no, this is my self-defense button where, you know, if you criticize, you know, my career choice, I'm very passionate about my career and I, you know, dig into that. And this is just me protecting myself or that sort of thing. Well, no, take that label off of it. And what do you have? You have sensation that's there. If you don't pay attention to that, another story will come up about it, and that story will have its own sensation that gets triggered, and you end up with this loop where you don't recognize that each one of those is linking to something else, and you have the illusion that the thought is you. That the thought is really real, and that the thought is extremely pertinent because you're feeling this physical response that seems to be indicating that this is all one unit. That you have a thought, and that thought is real because I feel that thought. That's a truth. I can really feel that in my bones. Well, no, you have a sound going on somewhere in mental space and you have sensations happening, and the two happen to be being connected in a way by another label, another thought, and really just our habit. You know, the habit of throughout life, this has been what I've experienced. And so what we'd like you to do is, in a situation like that, drop down, feel into the body, take off the initial label of what caused it. And if you are in a situation where you can do this, like before you go there, especially, feel into that and feel what other times have you felt this? When has this been a thing? And recognize if that sensation has come about every time you're in a position where you feel unworthy, where you feel like you are defenseless in a situation.
Fear, guilt, and shame. The underlying,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. See which one of those things is related to that particular sensation, and recognize that that's not a hallmark of fear. That's a sensation which often comes about in a certain context in which it's reinforcing some old held belief. And then you take that off and you just allow the belief to come off to one side, the thought to come off to one side, and then just be with that physical contraction, whatever the sensation is, and recognize that it's not that bad. You can stay with it and see if that actually makes it so that you have to do something to escape from it. So see if in the situation when Uncle Janice is bringing up, you know, eggnog
and Palestine,
because, you know, the two go together so well. But if they bring up something like that, see if you really need to deflect from that sensation by saying something. Is it possible to just sit with what's there? And we're doing this for a couple reasons, right? We're doing this, one, because this is getting to the root of why you react in any situation at all. It's getting to your core beliefs that you've often not recognized. But it's also because in a given situation, if you react out of just this blind rage, those words are not being heard. Nothing good is coming out of this situation. You might feel...
And also, but I just want to, as a bracket, say that in that blind rage, you're not talking about what is really happening in you. You're still with rage, with anger, with, that is still a diversion from what is actually happening, because it's nothing in Uncle Janice that is the issue, or Palestine that is the issue, or the eggnog that is the issue. There's something in you that is being triggered and activated, and that is what we're trying to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just recognizing that it's not that by not doing that defensive move so that you don't feel this, we have the idea that if I don't say this, then they win, that I'm not...
I need to stand up for myself. What about my boundaries? Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Or the other people,
Yeah, nobody's standing up for Palestine.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So, or for being a vegan at a Christmas meal where, you're going to get, vegan jokes. It's just inevitable. People are going to pick on it. So instead of going into that feeling of where you have the righteous motivation to set these people right, it's just coming into, okay, if I say anything out of this place, it's not coming from a place of authenticity where they're going to hear what I'm saying and we're going to have an equal exchange, and that's not even the point of it.
And it's not coming from the space where I am allowed to be in the world as I am. You are allowed to be in the world as you are. That's not the space it's coming from. It's coming from, I am allowed to be in the space, in the world, the way that I am, and you need to accept that.
Absolutely. Well, and I am right and you are wrong.
Absolutely.
And you have to change your views in order to
because
accommodate me, because I know.
Yeah.
But the problem is, we all come from that same space where we are very certain that we know what's real and what's true because we have all the facts on our side. Mm-hmm. The problem is everybody else also has all the facts on their side as far as they know. And so there's a fundamental disconnect here. So having that, excuse me, I've lost my voice. Sorry. Too much eggnog. Having
I told you. I told you.
You did. Feeling the contraction, sitting with the sensation. It's okay.
That's amazing.
No, but really, in this situation, come back to that and then recognize that you don't need to defend against this for whatever reason. And if a conversation happens, a conversation happens. But it's coming from a very different place and a very different starting point than you are wrong, I am right, I am feeling attacked by you and need to defend myself. Oh,
it's okay. Yeah, okay. It's okay. It's the thing, where it goes into...
How does it do that?
Mac.
So I think that's without.
I would like to. I just would like to emphasize. I'm probably repeating you here, but I would just like to emphasize that what we would like for you to become aware of this Christmas, it's that feedback loop that is happening, that somebody's saying something, and immediately Uncle Janice is saying something about eggnog and Palestine, and immediately you hear what Uncle Janice is saying, and in you get a contraction in the body, and that is creating a blaming, shaming, complaining about Uncle Janice, and that those words coming out is going back to another contraction in the body. That's what it is what we're talking about, that you have a sensation in the body and a thought is attaching to that, and then you create a label about that thought. And now we are talking about the label. This is exactly what is happening. And the reason why we would like for you to become aware of that feedback loop is for you to be able to separate the two.
Yeah.
So you can see that those two are not connected. And you can feel that feedback loop right now by just, closing your eyes for a moment and then clench your fist as tight as you can, bite your teeth as tight as you can, and then squeeze your bum muscles as tight as you can. And let go of it and make a deep breathe in and shake your body. Did you feel what happened with your thoughts? Instead of having loving, compassionate, and kind thoughts, it became very, very restricted. And it's because the connection that we have with the muscles, they're connected with a thought, and the thought are connected with muscles. So there is no you in the middle of that. That is just the feedback loop happening. So when you're clenching your fist and biting your teeth, specific thoughts are happening because the body is preparing for fight. And that is creating specific thoughts that is then feeding back into the body, releasing specific hormones, and now you're ready to fight Uncle Janice. There's no you in there anywhere. That is just biochemistry and physiology happening. And that is what we would like for you to become aware of. Because we tend to believe when we have a thought, first fetter, when we have a thought, we tend to believe that thought to be true. When we have a feeling, second fetter, that is, we tend to believe that is true. And then we have lots of things to keep those two true. By everybody, I'm vegan, so now I'm going to fight you because you say such and such. Yeah. And then we identify with all this that has nothing to do with anyone, anywhere. It's just a feedback loop that is happening. And the moment you become aware of that, and the moment you separate the two, so for example, you can do it again now when the video is done, or you can post the video right now where you clench your fist, you bite your teeth, and you clench your bum. And then you feel how that influences your breath, that you're not breathing freely anymore. You're not soft and open anymore. You're very, very contracted and closed. You're ready to fight. And see if you can separate the two. Can you sit with clenched hands and clenched jaw and just observe the thoughts that come. Just observe how contracted you are. Just observe that you're trying to pick a fight right now by how you physically are in the world. And that is what we're doing when we work with the curriculum. That when we talk about the bubble of reality, that whatever you think you hear is happening up there, or whatever you catch your thought is talking about, which is often about something out there, or something that you are also, you should, something in the future, you shouldn't have something in the past. The thoughts are never about now. So when you have a physical sensation, like Todd said, see if you can follow that. Where do you recognize that from? What is that pointing at? That situation you were in when you were 5, it's not for you to talk about the story when you were 5. That story is only popping up to mind, so you remember the feeling you had then. It's the same feeling as is here now. Okay, can I create space for that? If I detach the thought and I just sit with the physical sensation in my body, and Uncle Janice is saying the thing about eggnog and Palestine, and I feel it in my body right now. I am now in kindergarten, Can you breathe into that? You were not there for you in kindergarten. You were not there for you when this underlying belief were created. It's not here now, this Christmas, because you need to remember kindergarten. It's for you to become aware of what is actually happening in your direct experience that you believe is true. Is it? Is it true? Is it possible for you to separate the two? So you just stay with that sensation in the body. Where is that taking you? Can you just stay with that? And not dissolve anything or forgive anyone, or there's no purpose with it. It's just for you to, what wasn't met then, what hasn't been met now this Christmas, can be met right now, in this moment right now, where you just allow whatever is present to be. And it's not anything that you're whipping yourself with, that you should be different anyway, or Uncle Janice should be different, or the Palestinians, or the Israelis, or Eggnog, or the dairy industry, or anyone should be any different. It's not the level we're talking about. We're talking about the suffering that you are creating for you right now.
Yeah, because sorry. Because
I think you need more eggnog.
I think I do. I think yes, this is an eggnog deficiency. My eggnog meter is low.
It is low. It needs to be dialed up. We're going to take care of that in a moment. Yeah.
No, it's helpful to recognize that if you are reacting to it being a political issue out there, or even an issue of your own well-being or your own self-confidence, that was not an issue a moment before until that other person said something. You had forgotten about Palestine in that moment until somebody else brought it up.
Yes.
You had not been thinking about yourself being self-deficient in some way until somebody brought up something that triggered this old reactive loop. So it's not that there's understand this correctly?
Go on.
It's not that there is not actually a Palestine and a conflict going on out there, and that there isn't, something else happening, but in your direct experience in that moment, that was not part of it until something else came up that then started this sparking up again. So in the moment when you are having an interaction with somebody where it's either sparking something about you personally or about a greater issue, recognize if there is really anything happening there in your situation in that moment that has anything to do with any of that. This is something that is purely coming out of your discomfort with the idea that is arising in that moment. And nothing to do with an actuality in your surroundings.
And also, we're not saying that we shouldn't do anything and support people in need that needs help. It's not what we're talking about at all. But the suffering that is happening with it, when you think about it, is unproductive.
Exactly.
It's absolutely unproductive. That suffering is not doing anything good in the world at all. So if you can detach yourself from the thought of the suffering that you are creating in you, that is where it starts to be really, really productive. And that is where what we're trying to do to save the world one awakening at a time, and that is where you become part of that. And
it's not to say, again, just if you're saying, you come from a debate-centered culture.
Yes.
So it's not to say that we can't discuss things or have debate and open sharing of information and all of that. That's on one level, which is really useful societally, and I think a great thing. Well, as you said, what we're talking about is how this relates to you and your discomfort and suffering, and the suffering that you then create in the world because you are not skillfully using the tools of dialogue and
inner dialogue as well, because again, it's not about the dialogue with Uncle Auntie, Uncle Janice, Uncle Auntie. Yeah, it's not about that discussion. No. It's about the dialogue that you are having with you, that feedback loop that is happening. And it is something to keep in mind, because we do often hear questions about. It's kind of confusing the two layers, that when we talk about something, it's not being completely detached from society or just not caring what happens in the world or being a complete sociopath. It's not, because really you could take some of these things on and you could using logical conclusions. You could walk your way back to being this completely detached sociopath. If you think that being out fear, anger, guilt, and shame is the path to awakening, then that's a recipe for sociopathy. It's not what we're talking about.
No. So there is a trick of navigating those two levels and realizing that what we're talking about is something that is internal to you, and it has to do with the.
But it's sorry, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but it's all if you go with me, the finger. But it's also about about seeing when you can be of service, because as long as you are completely engulfed in your own emotions and feelings and fear and guilt and shame and blaming, shame and complaining and all of that is happening in you, you're not of service to anyone.
No.
You need to sort that out first, and that's also why we find it so important to work with this when we talk about non-self. The non-self is the door into it, understanding there is no separate self. But it's also, and that's why we work with the fetters, it's also looking into that there are many other levels of identification besides just that there is no separate self. There are so many other levels, and there are so many traumas that has happened during our lives that need compassion, love, and kindness when we look at it and look into it. And that needs to be sorted out. Otherwise, you're not of service for anyone. Then it's just bypassing, and that doesn't help anyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Was that it?
I think
so. Just to emphasize, it's about discovering that feedback loop from thought into a bodily sensation, detach the two, staying with the bodily sensation and allowing what is to be, meet that with love, compassion, and kindness, and drink eggnog.
Vegan eggnog.
Yeah. I think we're gonna put up our recipe for eggnog after this, so we can make so you can get some eggnog. Was that it?
I think so.
I think that was it. We're looking forward to 2024. We have a lot of plans and ideas that we are really looking forward to share. To be sharing with you. And I think that was it.
Yeah, a couple little ideas had come up, but I didn't really get to. Well, I didn't fully get to, as you were saying the one thing when we were talking about the clenching exercise.
Yeah.
I was thinking also it would be really interesting to do it with a neutral phrase, both clenched and unclenched.
Yes.
And see how with the bodily sensations, how they affect the coloration of even a neutral phrase. Like, I'm sitting here right now, and then do it clenched and feel if there's resistance to the fact that you're sitting here right now. Would you be better off doing something else? Or if you then release it and say, I'm sitting here right now, is there a sense of peace and ease and contentment with the fact that you are just simply sitting here right now?
Yeah.
And see how the body really colors not even the thoughts, well, in some cases, the thoughts that arise, but also our perception of and the coloration of the thoughts that are arising.
Yeah. And I'm really happy you thought of that, because I also love to play with exactly that, creating a physical scenario in the body that is contracting, just to trigger and see what comes up, just to activate the mind and see what comes up. And then I know, okay, this needs my attention. Then I relax, and then I just sit with whatever came up to create, a further reaction in the body, and then detach. As a way to explore different avenues of contraction in the body. And also do it the other way, that you are sending out love and like metta, sending out love and compassion and kindness to everyone and to yourself, and see what thoughts are attached with that one. Is it I'm so good, I'm doing this, or is it this is just completely bypassing, there is no such thing as love, there is no such thing. So see what comes up. What is it that you connect, what that feedback loop that is happening, what are you connecting with that? Because you're the only one doing that. There were 9 billion people, and every single one experienced that exercise differently, which means there's no such thing as one truth. So just to become aware of all those underlying beliefs that we have, and then spending 2024 dissolving those ones.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I was going to say really quickly
go on. You don't need to speak quickly about it.
Okay, well, yeah.
Got all day. Go on.
Okay. Well, it's just the recognition that, what we were talking about in one way is sort of a Fetter 5 inquiry of feeling the contraction that comes up in the body, and then do we need to react to that? But the other interesting part of this is, and I think we've mentioned this someplace, but I don't remember where, is that, in terms of the Fetter model and the 2-arrow model, or the Buddhist dart model, that second one is what we're usually talking about is the suffering that comes from The anger or the feeling of contraction and our outward response to it and the thoughts about it and all of that. But actually what happens with the way that we're working on it, which is a little bit different than the way that other people work with the stuff, is that you have the somebody says something, they criticize your amount of eggnog that you're drinking, and you have it's a hot button issue. Let's face it. I mean, it really is on the lips of everybody this season. That's just eggnog consumption is really, the trigger of the year. So somebody says that, and you get this a feeling of and that we call that the primary sensation, the first thing that comes up that's just this contraction. And then what we usually do is the question of what do we do with that?
Yeah,
do we react to it in some way by blaming, complaining, explaining, shaming, or yelling, or throwing chairs, or whatever? Or can we sit with that, be with that, and just let it be there? But when we are doing this kind of detaching the label, being with the sensations, and allowing them with time to be as they are, and to recognize them and see what underlying belief these are pointing to, that is where it actually starts to have it so that that primary sensation doesn't even have to happen.
Yes. That
somebody can say that you drink too much eggnog, and you can say, cheers to that.
Yeah. And you're right.
You're right.
You're right.
Cheers. And that initial contraction doesn't even have to come up anymore. So it's not just that we're dealing with being able to sit with the discomfort and not react to it. We're actually undercutting even that and getting to the root of why is this a problem for you and not for the person sitting next to you.
Yeah.
They don't care about their eggnog consumption, but you do. So what is that saying about you and your beliefs about yourself?
Yeah.
And so that's why we're really getting down one level deeper.
And it's actually a bit what we talked about this morning, that there's like that there's always that underlying belief of inadequacy, that I am flawed in some way.
Yeah.
And other people are pointing that flawness out, that I am inadequate. And that is why, Uncle Janice is pointing out all the eggnog that I'm drinking, that is what we're actually talking about, how flawed they see me. Obviously the mirror is telling you that you feel flawed, and that is what you need to look at.
Exactly.
And stay with.
And it's an interesting thing with the mirrors, is that on one hand, if somebody tells you you have an eggnog problem, and you feel that, you felt it because you believe that there is something about you that is flawed. Whether it is your eggnog consumption or something else, it's still hitting something that seems relevant and that feels like an open wound. The other side of that is, ironically, the other person who is lobbing that assumption at you that you are drinking too much has something else to look at, because probably they also have a very similar issue of one way or another. But this isn't to use them to point that finger back at them and say, oh no, you're the one with the eggnog problem. That's not at all helpful to anybody. They have their own bubble to work with, you have yours. So just see why it is, what in you is there that gives there any reason for that arrow to even stick to anything. Why is it not just bouncing right off of you like you're...
And funnily enough, if you're sitting and thinking, but I am a guide, I need to look at what their bubble is actually saying, that when Uncle Janice are talking about my eggnog problem, it's because they have a problem with their consumption of chocolate. So let's talk about that. I am a guide. I am supposed to point that out. Where what what we're saying, what we're pointing at, that again, that is not how it works, even with guiding. That it is about feeling into the body, and also what we do when we talk with guides, that is that feeling into the body, what is actually arising in you right now that is relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for a wonderful 23, and we're looking forward to a wonderful 24. The last thing we wanted to say is about the playlist.
Yes.
Do you want to say it?
There's a playlist.
Bye.
Enjoy.
No.
We have created...
we're getting married.
We are. I think a lot of you knew that anyway.
But for everybody who doesn't know, we are getting married, and we have created a playlist, a bit like us creating a mixtape to you. So on the channel, both the Awakening curriculum and on your channel as well, isn't it?
I can't. I think so. I can't remember. I think yeah. I think so.
I think it's on both channels. You can find the Todd and Pernille's wedding playlist, and that is a mixtape from us to you.
Yeah, and it's specifically just kind of love-related songs that seemed, you know, particularly relevant to both of us that we loved.
Yeah,
and,
so it's very much music we love and love to listen to, and and we just wanted to, as a wedding present, give you a mixtape. So
and we're using it as background music during the actual day of our wedding and ceremony. So we thought it would be nice to put it together into a playlist that everybody can share.
Yeah, and everybody can enjoy at any point.
Yeah,
and I think that's it.
Yeah. Thank you all so much, really.
Yes.
It's been an incredible year.
It really has. Yeah. Really has. I'm so grateful for all the groups that you're attending, all the videos you're watching, all the vulnerable questions you're asking and inquiries that we're doing, have been doing this year. So looking forward to next year, with all the inquiries that is going to happen next year. Yeah. So happy holidays to everyone. Holidays. Thank you. Bye. Bye.